Hey guys, hey there guys, Mike here. Mike's DVDs and Blu-rays collection is back, and I wanted to kind of show everybody the movies that I watched in October, which was, is known as Halloween and Scary Movie Month and all that good stuff. As you know, on my video, on my channel, I talk about horror and I have stuff like that, but I don't always exclusively talk about horror movies. But I do love horror movies, especially the classics, like, the Universal Monsters and Hammer. Mainly those are the ones I really dive into and really enjoy those movies, and like the Roger Corman Poe movies and stuff like that. Of course, I love, the good old all-American slasher movie that I grew up on and stuff like that, and some good ones here and there. But I'm just going to jump in and just kind of show some of the movies that I watched, because I watched, at the end of the day, when I actually looked at everything that I watched for the month, I really did watch quite a bit of horror movies. And so let's get right to that. I'm gonna probably have to split this up so it's not too long and too boring. But let's get right to it. Now, these are in no particular order or by director, actor, or anything. These were just, this isn't the first movie I watched, and it's not the last one. So they're just all mixed up. These are what I watched. So, as always, this is another traditional October Halloween horror movie that I watch every year. I just love this movie. This is one of my favorite Arrow releases. It was really one of my first Arrow releases. It was probably at least one of the first 5 that I ever got and everything, because this is a Region B release. I believe it's there's a Region A also, but anyways, this is Mario Bava's Black Sabbath. Famously, the band Black Sabbath took its name from this movie, which came out in the late 60s. It's kind of a anthology movie. It's got 3 tales. Boris Karloff is in one. Really good. Some really good stuff that still holds up. Really good late 60s or actually this is like mid 60s Italian horror. It's got that beautiful color, you got the Technoscope probably going on with it. And Mario Bava was really interesting as a director. He did different stuff. He did westerns and did stuff like that. He did a few westerns, but this is where he was the best. And there's a lot of Mario Bava that I need to check out and add to my collection. But yeah, Black Sabbath, always watch that every year. I just really love that movie. Next up, who can get through Halloween without watching this? 1974's Young Frankenstein. It's a comedy. It's a loving tribute to the James Whale Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, and even Son of Frankenstein. Mel Brooks he directed this in 74. He had a hell of a year in 1974, releasing 2 of his biggest movies he's known for, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, both in 1 year. I mean, that's just wow. But anyways, this is a loving tribute to those movies. He kind of uses a mixture of Son of Frankenstein, Bride, and the first one. Hilarious. Marty Friedman as Igor, and of course Gene Wilder as Dr. Frankenstein, Peter Boyle as the monster, Terry Garr, Cloris Leachman, amongst others. But man, it is a great movie, a beautifully filmed black and white movie, and I'm so glad that they did that in black and white, because I couldn't imagine it in color. I don't know. I think it would still be funny, but it doesn't take you in to that place and time like black and white does. So Frankenstein, I haven't watched that for a few years actually. It's kind of been off the list. But one that I've becoming one of my personal classics that I love this movie. I can watch this movie anytime though, but this is actually a 3-pack by Edgar Wright. But I checked out Shaun of the Dead, a great comedy zombie movie. It really pumped some life into the zombie genre when Edgar Wright did this, because not only is it really, really funny as just a comedy, but it's got really good makeup effects, and it's just really well made. And it's got some really great set pieces in there, set around the Winchester bar where they congregate and everything. So really good movie. Shaun of the Dead, great movie. Next up, I wanted to. I had never had this on video of any sort, so I checked out the Shout Blu-ray edition of The Howling, Joe Dante's, I believe, 1981 movie. Werewolves were starting to become the cup of tea in the early 80s with American Werewolf in London. You got the Howling movies. You had Wolfen, and a couple other ones, but they were all really interesting and good. But this is a pretty cool Shout release. It's got dual artwork. It's got this slip cover. It's got quite a bit of extras on here and everything. But man, this is like a horror movie I grew up with. The Howling movies, Howling 1, Howling 2 especially. Really good. And really cool package. It's really nice. A really nice Shout release. And this was a movie that I really loved. This movie. This goes back to the video rental days in the late 80s. This was a movie that I think me and my sister really liked. I think we rented this a few times, and then it ended up on HBO, and we watched it a ton of times on HBO. And unfortunately, the lead actor of this recently passed. He had a tragic. He was hiking in the mountains, and he disappeared for a year, and they didn't know what happened to him. They found his remains. It's a very tragic story. But I'm talking about Julian Sands and the movie Warlock, which the first one I think is the best one. Of course, there was a whole trilogy of them or whatever, but I really focus on the first one. I really like that one. Julian Sands as like a demon, basically coming back to he's like a warlock, a demon, whatever, from like the 17th century, 1700s. He comes back to modern day LA in the 80s, 89 to be particular. And then you got this hunter, like a witch hunter, played by Richard E. Grant, and he's one of the best parts of the movie too. Him and Julian Sands are just really great. And in the middle of that, you got Laurie Singer, who's the little sister of Mark Singer, the Beastmaster, and she's really good in that too. But yeah, Warlock, this has to be a great classic late 80s horror movie. It's got just the right amount of humor in it and horror and special effects, and it's really awesome. You should check that out. Next up, this was a recommendation by Leslie, his channel, The Good, the Bad, and the Okay. We were talking, we were texting each other, and he said, you should check that movie out. And I was like, and I was already thinking about it, because it had just recently come out, and I saw it at Walmart or somewhere, and everything. And I really didn't pay attention until I really got the movie of who's in it. But the movie I'm talking about is Infinity Pool. Now, this is a crazy, twisted movie. This is by the son of David Cronenberg. What's his name? What's his name? I don't know. I'm so silly to not know his name. But anyways, it's David Cronenberg's son. He's done a handful of films already. He's getting a lot of acclaim. He's really going in his father's footsteps, but doing his own spin on things and stuff. And they both have twisted minds, I guess you could say. But the Infinity Pool movie was really good, very twisted. It's kind of a mixture of a sci-fi, horror tinge thriller, kind of a it was really interesting. I found it to be really science fiction-y for some reason. I may be wrong, but anyways, it stars Mia Goth, who's very popular at this time. She's had a great run of good scary movies with X and Pearl and all those, and then it's got the great Alexander Skarsgård from the famous Skarsgård family. He was on True Blood. That's where I know him mostly, as a vampire on True Blood, the HBO series. And it's also got Cleopatra Coleman in it, a new up-and-coming star. But yeah, this is a really twisted, crazy movie. I recommend getting the director's cut, I believe it is, or the uncut version, which cuts out a little bit of stuff, but really cool. Definitely, if you're into David Cronenberg, you're going to like Infinity Pool for sure. Next up, now there's been rumors for a long time that this is going to come out on 4K. Companies that's been thrown around that's going to put it out like Second Sight, but it's been a rumor for a long time, and it probably will come out in 2024. But I got the very crusty old snapper case from the early, this is probably from 98, 99 when DVD first came on the scene. This is, I think it's 1986's The Hitcher. Really good psychological terror movie, horror type movie. You know, Rutger Hauer as this crazed drifter who, C. Thomas Howell, who he was really big in the 1980s, is a kid. He's driving cars for a job, like he'll deliver a car out of state and then he'll drive another car back and stuff like that. So he's driving his car to wherever. He has to go through a desert area, and he ends up picking him up, and he discovers he's got a crazed madman in the car. And after that, it turns into a cat and mouse game. That's really good. This is just a really good movie. I grew up watching this. This was an HBO staple for so many years. Great cast. It's got a very young Jennifer Jason Leigh. I mean, she had been around for a while, but she still seems so young in this movie. Like I said, C. Thomas Howell and Rutger Hauer in this is really good. Tagline, never pick up a stranger. Next up, found a really great deal on eBay. This guy was selling 4 movies. 3 of them had never been opened. They were all Shout Factory releases. 3 of those were Hammer movies that I was looking for, and I got a really good deal with them. He even included the posters that Shout Factory did a few years ago with like pre-orders and stuff. So I got 3 posters to the 3 Hammer movies. But this odd one was thrown in here. This is a recent 4K release by Shout. The Sword and the Sorcerer, which I kind of remember it from the 80s, but I don't. This is part of that like time period in the early mid 80s where a lot of like Sorcerer, Dragon Slayer, you know, different type of, you know, Dungeons and Dragons inspired, you know, stuff like that. The Sword and the Sorcerer. I had put it on, I was doing something in the background, and it just never really captured my attention to come sit down right in front of it and watch it. The 4K was not completely impressive to me. I definitely need to rewatch this because after putting it in and watching it, I really do not remember it from the 80s. But I know I've seen it. I know at least once because I was really into those kind of movies, as everybody probably was back then. But yeah, it's a 4K. It's got the Blu-ray. It's got a little bit of extra stuff on there. It's a new 2021 4K scan. So yeah, this is going to go into that give it another try pile. You know what I mean? But there's probably some raging lunatic fans of this movie that's going to say, oh man, you're crazy, that's a great movie. And it's like, okay, let me watch it again. So I'm going to put that in that pile. Next up, this was a movie. This is actually a collection of Meets the Monsters stuff. On a live stream I do with some friends, other channels. It's called Good Movies. It's a live stream we do. We had an episode where we kind of talked about this for a few minutes, and then we kind of go on our rabbit hole and talk about it, you know, everything else. But we wanted to focus on Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and I have multiple copies of that movie. It's on 2 or 3 Universal sets. I have this one. I believe it's even on like some Abbott and Costello sets. But anyways, this one's got, you know, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Meet the Invisible Man, Meet Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, Meet the Mummy. There's actually another one, Meets the Killer Boris Karloff, but I guess that's not considered horror, which is what they were kind of going for with this release. But yeah, this is one of those kind of little interesting releases that, you know, you would see at Walmart back in the good old days when they, you know, had good stuff. But yeah, just a little focus package release where it's just those movies and stuff. And I always find it fun to go back to it. I love the artwork and everything. So, and what can I say about Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein? It's probably their best movie, arguably. But I really love it. It's one of my favorite ones of theirs. So that was really cool to kind of focus on that. And speaking of Universal movies and Universal horror, 1941's The Wolfman is a bona fide classic starring Lon Chaney Jr. and everything. But back in, gosh, I don't know when this was, 2011, 2009. I'm not really sure exactly when it is. But Universal was trying to relaunch the Monsters again. They were trying to do this new Universal Monsters universe, and it really just didn't happen. All the movies just weren't that great. But I'm pretty sure this was one of them. This is The Wolfman, starring Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins. A lot of people were saying, you know, he's miscast, you know, as the Wolfman and stuff. But I think he's kind of got a Oliver Reed Wolfman kind of look going. He's kind of got that intensity in his eyes and stuff like Oliver Reed had in the Hammer version of the Wolfman. But anyways, it's not as bad as people say it is. I would believe this would probably be the best one over, say, The Mummy, Tom Cruise's The Mummy, and some of those like that. But yeah, I watched it. Not too bad. It's okay. But I need to add the Jack Nicholson Wolf movie. I need to get that one and stuff also. But there you go, The Wolfman. I had to give it a spin. Now this one I've shown on some other episodes. I've even had an episode focus on it, but I wanted to rewatch it. Everything. It's the recent 4K from Kino of The Night of the Hunter. Really good terroristic thriller type movie, you know, and everything. So I wanted to give that another spin. I won't talk about it too long because there's a whole video about it. And this was a video that I bought on, it was a blind buy. And at the time, there was two companies putting this movie out as 4Ks. You had a Second Sight 4K, and then in the States, you had the Shout Factory 4K. And being a blind buy, I have never, you know, seen the movie. Somehow, it's a great cult movie. But I went with a more economical one in case I just didn't like it for some reason. And I first put it in, and it was too late at night. I fell asleep. It didn't remember nothing about it. But I put it on again recently and freaking loved it. The movie I'm talking about is Dog Soldiers. Really cool British movie. I believe it came out in like 1999, 97, somewhere late 90s, early 2000s. Really cool movie. It's kind of like Walter Hill's Southern Comfort, where you have a group of British military reservesmen going out into the woods to do some, drills and practices, and the word escapes me at the moment, but they go out there and just mess around and they're not using real ammo and just kind of like Southern Comfort in a way. But what happens is they encounter these wolves, these wolf creatures, half something creatures, and if you get bit by them, you start turning into a werewolf and everything. But it is a badass movie. It kind of reminds me of Aliens, where you got that camaraderie of the team, and they each got their own personality, and they're badass and they're fighting. It's got a little bit of like Southern Comfort flair to it. It's also got some of its own originality going. But really, really good movie. I love this movie. This is going to be a new Halloween favorite if I just watch it on Halloween. But yeah, Dog Soldiers. I really recommend that. Some people have said this one wasn't that great of a transfer, but I didn't see too much wrong with it. I really didn't. I didn't really analyze it. It looked fine to me. But apparently the second sight release is better. So, Dog Soldiers. And then finally, guys, I want to talk about the Universal movies. I can't go through Halloween without watching at least a few of the classics, just like watching the Roger Corman, Vincent Price movies from the 60s. Just have to watch those. I love those movies. So I got out the old great Blu-ray box set of the classic Monsters, complete 30 film set. That's got all the sequels to each one, like all the Frankensteins, all the Wolfmen, all the, so I got into this one, and what did I watch? This year, I focused on a couple things. I really wanted to see Son of Frankenstein again, because I really like that. It's kind of underrated in its own weird way. I mean, Bela Lugosi's great as, was it Igor or Yagor? But yeah, I got the Frankenstein Legacy Collection out, and I watched Son of Frankenstein from 1939, and I believe I watched like The Ghost of Frankenstein and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman off of there. That was a night where you could watch them all, because they're only like an hour, 10, 15 minutes long. So kind of dived into that one. And then I got the Dracula set out another night, and I wanted to focus on the 1931 Spanish version of Dracula, which some people say it's better. In watching it, it seems like it's longer. It seems like some of the scenes are better played out than watching the Bela Lugosi Todd Browning version, because that one seems like it has some jump cuts somehow. At times, and sometimes that movie can seem a little darker. This movie seemed to be lit a little lighter, or the print is just really a good print compared to the original Dracula. Now, don't get me wrong, the Bela Lugosi Todd Browning version is still my favorite, but the Spanish version is really a great contender in this whole Universal universe. So really good. It was really cool. Of course, it's subtitled, and the way they did that back then is the studios, before the days of dubbing and stuff like that, they would basically shoot the movie 3 or 4 times. They would save the sets. They would bring in some different actors to whatever language it was, if it was German, French, or whatever, and a lot of times it was the same technicians and stuff behind the camera, usually a different director and everything. So that's kind of what they did with Dracula. When everyone left for the day, at night they filmed the Spanish version, and in a lot of cases they did that quite a bit up until probably in the 30s for sure, and then I'm not sure what happened after that, how they did it. But yeah, like they would do that with other movies besides the Universal movies. Even MGM did it. They would make a German version and a French version, and even Laurel and Hardy shorts back then. There's French versions, German versions, and it's them talking. That's what's always confused me. It's like, is Laurel and Hardy really speaking a different language? Did they have to learn a different language to shoot these little, shorts and stuff? It's really fascinating, actually. But anyways, don't want to go down a rabbit hole. But anyway, it was really cool to kind of rewatch the Spanish version of Dracula, which, I've had it for many, many, many years in different Dracula packages and stuff like that. Usually just the single release of Dracula would always have that on there. But yeah, I've kind of focused off and on this 30 film collection of Universal movies. And of course, these have come out in recent years, these, 4K releases with 4 movies, basically a cash grab, I mean, there's so many different sets now with the Universal movies and stuff. But yeah, like this one's got Dracula, in 4K, and it even has the Spanish version of Dracula, but I don't think it's in 4K on here, you know, and stuff like that. So, you know, and then this one's got The Mummy. I believe I watched The Mummy. Yeah, I watched The Mummy on this one, in 4K, and then on this 4K set, I believe I watched The Wolfman and Frankenstein. Frankenstein looks really good in 4K, by the way. So yeah, kind of watch those. So there you go, guys. This is kind of like part one of what I watched during October. I hope you enjoyed it. Comments are very welcome. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And I'll be back soon with part two, and we'll still continue diving into Halloween 2023. Take it easy, guys.